The MC's strategic mind is just incredible. We see the ruthless gourmet plan to weaken the Xin tribe through seemingly helpful tech transfer. Talk about long-game economic warfare. Then the successful launch of that massive sailing ship felt like such a victory, showing real, tangible progress for the Han tribe. Niu Wei wanting it but being stuck is pure poetic justice. But the real genius move? That leased territory proposal. Offering tech like papermaking and printing in exchange for a foothold right inside Xin territory, complete with workshops, schools, and even a bank. It's audacious and brilliant. The spy versus spy elements are heating up too, with both sides planting agents. And seeing the MC actually complete those foundational textbooks, poems, rites, math, nature, shows the immense effort going into building this civilization from the ground up. The fluorescent willows were a magical touch too. It ends with the Yu brothers prepping for danger and the MC returning home. What mission awaits those new ships, and how will the Xin respond to this incredible offered demand? Can't wait to see. All right, I give in. I'll stop running around lately. Making babies, that's fine, right? Under Xiaodi's agree or I'll eat you gaze, you decisively backed down. Honestly, it wasn't like you had no feelings for Xiaodi. Back then, her healthy wheat-colored skin, regular features, and lively energy were exactly why you chose her. Now, after being well-nourished in the Han tribe for over 4 years, she was long past being that rustic girl from before. She had good foundations to begin with, and with improved living conditions, eating well alongside you, bathing frequently, and practicing good hygiene, and dressed in suitable Hanfu dresses. Tuck-tusk, well-fed, her complexion rosy, her skin had even lightened several shades. Not to mention she was now the chieftain's wife and a technical expert in textiles and dyeing. Her confidence, her bearing, shot right up, giving her more and more the air of the primary wife. Hearing you relent, Xiaodi let out a whoop and threw her arms around your neck, happy as a child who'd found treasure. This scene was witnessed by Zhan Ying, who happened to be returning with a basin of chili peppers. The young girl's face flushed instantly, and she quickly lowered her head. Sister Xiaodi is back. I'll go make dinner for you both. You nodded, answered, okay, and took the chance to pat Xiaodi's back. All right, get down first. Let's cook and eat. I brought back some good stuff for you this time. You'll get an eyeful later. What good stuff? Did husband find new dyes again? Xiaodi released you, asking curiously as she walked towards the kitchen. Secret. It's a type of shiny ornament, a rare item sent by the Xin tribe's delegation, something you'd definitely never see in our remote mountains. I picked out some choice items. We'll divide the spoils between you two later. You deliberately kept them in suspense, entered the main house, and plopped down on a small stool in front of the stove, expertly helping tend the fire. Forget that. A gentleman stays clear of the kitchen stuff. That didn't apply here. Not only did you not stay clear, you actually loved cooking, especially the sense of accomplishment when recreating flavors from back home, tisk. Besides, if you didn't take charge of the cooking, the Han tribe's menu would probably stay stagnant for half a year. Dinner for 3 was efficient. Rice was already simmering in a small pot. Xiaodi washed dishes, Zhan Ying chopped vegetables, and you personally wielded the spatula. A fragrant plate of cumin lamb, a crisp dish of stir-fried cabbage with chili, a home-style pan-fried tofu with bean sprouts and blood curd, and finally your special request, white tofu with chili sauce. 4 dishes ready, a welcome home meal for you, and also a warm-up for the impending, great undertaking of making babies. As for soup, forget it. Stewing soup took too long. Lately, you'd gotten into drinking tea, so soup was made less often at home. When it was made occasionally, it was mostly using offal. After all, animal organs were nutritious and couldn't be wasted. At the dinner table, you diligently served food to both women, subtly observing the interaction between Xiaodi and Juning. Fortunately, the atmosphere was harmonious, with none of the cliché drama of domestic strife erupting. Perhaps it was the perspective of the times. Multiple partners for a tribal chief was standard practice. Bah, it was the right of priority marriage. Shouty showed no trace of jealousy or possessiveness, at least outwardly appearing quite considerate towards John Ying. Listening to their conversation, you could tell that John Ying was indeed well looked after by this older sister, Xiao Die. As for John Ying, seeing your intimacy with Xiao Dai, there was a hint of envy in her eyes, but definitely no jealousy. She was already content just being able to live these comfortable days with enough food and clothing. Xiao Dai never hesitated to share what she had with her. As for feelings, well, those could develop slowly. There was plenty of time. After dinner, you took a stroll to aid digestion, then led them both to the administration building to retrieve the choice items you'd brought back. Several newly made sets of the 4 treasures of the study, and that small bag of sparkling pearls. These pearls were all quite large, some round, some irregular. Necklaces? Too ostentatious, easy to give off a nouveau riche vibe. Earrings? Not bad, but unfortunately the Han tribe girls hadn't yet mastered the fashionable skill of ear piercing. Most people still generally went for head ornaments, bracelets, and the like. You thought for a moment and made the decision: head ornaments. Gold hairpins with large pearl dangling ornaments, swaying gracefully. That has an ethereal quality. Stringing them into a big necklace is just obscenely flashy, tacky, and ostentatious. As expected, the 2 women loved them, picking up the pearls and holding them against each other's heads, chattering excitedly. They even started pondering how to give you a pearl decoration too. Hearing this, your mouth twitched, and you quickly slipped away to the study, spread out paper and brush, and swiftly sketched several designs for hairpins and dangling ornaments, planning to have the craftsman at the metallurgy workshop try making them later. The 3 of you laughed and joked for a while, then washed up together. The melodious evening. Bell tolled through the settlement, signaling the start of the curfew, and households extinguished their lights and closed their doors. The night wind rustled the willow branches. The empty streets held only the monotonous footsteps of patrolling soldiers. Yet from the residential areas, faint sounds of laughter and chatter drifted intermittently. A safe and comfortable environment, with ample and stable food, had completely freed the Han tribe from the animal-like constraints of seasonal breeding. Nowadays, having children was a year-round endeavor. This not only satisfied people's restless hearts, but also generated income for families. After all, you, the chieftain, had personally promised, have 1 child, get an extra plot of tax-free land. A tangible benefit, who wouldn't strive for? Yet your household was naturally no exception. At this moment you felt like a diligent old ox, earnestly, well, for the future of the tribe, for next year's good harvest, time to get to work. The next day, just as the sky began to lighten, you climbed out of bed and put on some meat congee to stew for Xiao Die and John Ying, who were still lazing in bed. Placing breakfast on the small table on the heated bed, you finished your own portion, wiped your mouth, and headed out. There was a lot to do today. You couldn't always be cooped up at home getting caught up in romance. Carrying several new book manuscripts, you went straight to the printing workshop in the teaching building and found the person in charge, Bai Chi. Here, new textbooks. You slapped the manuscripts onto the table. This Han writes is the final version. Typeset and print it directly according to this. There are a few illustrations inside. I've sketched drafts in pencil. Find someone to carve the printing blocks. These 2 volumes, Arithmetic Beginner and Intermediate, have quite a few illustrations, numbers, and tables. If you have enough manpower, go straight to carved blocks for these 2. These books will have large print runs, carving blocks won't be a loss, and it's convenient. And this one, Natural Science, can be printed a bit later. It also has many illustrations. Carve them slowly. These books won't undergo major changes for several years, so print with confidence. Start with 10,000 copies of each. Our school needs them, and we also need to distribute them to other commanderies, counties, and cities. Bai Chi quickly flipped through the manuscripts while listening to your instructions. When he heard 10,000 copies, His jaw nearly dropped. Chieftain, print that many? Of course. You waved your hand grandly, looking at his stunned and dumbfounded expression, and explained, "These are the future standard textbooks for the schools. They'll be good for a century, no problem. Just do as I say, you can't go wrong." While the beast teeth you were waiting for were nowhere to be seen, but you did spot the translator leading Niu Wei and his group on a wander through the teaching building. You raised an eyebrow and waved someone over. "Go fetch that translator." "For me. Elder Niu, take a look. This is where our Han tribe imparts knowledge, called a school," the translator explained animatedly. "This building is called the teaching building. 3 floors, 6 classrooms per floor, stairs on both sides. 1,000 or so people can attend classes simultaneously without issue. There are 4 such buildings in Hanyang City." The moment Niu Wei and his group stepped into the teaching building, their jaws nearly hit the floor. Underfoot were brick and stone steps, the entrance hall and corridors paved with gleaming small, light yellow square tiles. The walls were painted snow white with a band of green paint running along the bottom. Large bay windows lined the corridors, letting sunlight pour in, making it exceptionally bright. One of Niu Wei's attendants almost lost his footing upon entering the corridor, feeling as if he were walking on eggshells, terrified of cracking the plates beneath his feet. He actually bent down to touch them, his face looking as if he'd seen a ghost. "Imu, isn't this the same as the plates we eat from?" "Ha ha 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 ha," the translator chuckled. "You're not wrong to say that. These are ceramic tiles made similarly to ceramic plates, just flattened out and laid on the floor." "My heavens," Niu Wei clicked his tongue. "The Han tribe is truly extravagant. So many identical plates just laid on the ground like this? Isn't that wasteful?" "Hey, Elder Niu, now you're speaking like an outsider," the translator explained. "Wooden floors are cheaper, but they aren't durable. This is a school, a public place, with thousands of teachers and students coming and going every day. Books, paper, pens, oil lamps, candles. What if a spark falls? Wouldn't a wooden building go whoosh and burn down entirely? Too dangerous. So when the building was constructed, our chieftain made the decision. Build with fire and water resistant. Brick and stone. All floors use ceramic tiles. Fireproof, waterproof, and easy to clean. It's a bit more expensive, but in the long run, it's cost-effective." "Oh, so that's how it is," Niu Wei suddenly understood, muttering inwardly. This Han tribe chieftain is incredibly meticulous. He thought about potential problems decades down the line, even during construction, nipping dangers in the bud. Impressive, truly impressive. The group walked into a classroom. Whoa, it was spacious, rectangular, with a large black-painted board, nailed to the front and back walls, large windows on both sides and white ceilings and walls, making it incredibly bright. There was a raised platform at the front with a lectern, and below were neat rows of desks and chairs. Niu Wei roughly estimated that the classroom could easily hold 70 or 80 people, but what intrigued him most were the 2 blackboards. "Sir, what are those 2 blackboards for? I remember seeing something similar in the barracks where we're staying. This is called a blackboard used for teaching. Come, take a look." The translator led them to the front and pulled a white stick from the lectern drawer. "This is called chalk." As he spoke, he wrote the 3 large characters for Han tribe on the blackboard with flourishing strokes. "You use this chalk to write directly on the blackboard. The teacher writes at the front and all the students below can see clearly. And these words can be erased instantly, so the blackboard can be used repeatedly. Good heavens, this blackboard is truly a treasure." Niu Wei's eyes widened. Was this also invented by the Han chieftain? Absolutely. The translator puffed out his chest, his face full of pride. "Our chieftain has come up with countless amazing things. Otherwise, how could our Han tribe be so powerful?" Niu Wei was, again, filled with admiration. How on earth does this Han chieftain's mind work? This blackboard is simply a divine tool for teaching. Before, teaching writing was manageable one-on-one, but with more people the teacher could shout themselves hoarse, and those at the back still couldn't see clearly. With the blackboard and chalk, the problem is solved instantly, after touring. The first floor, the translator led them up to the second. The exquisite craftsmanship of the wooden staircase and the rational architectural layout again drew gasps of amazement from Niu Wei and his group, who couldn't stop murmuring, "Remarkable and truly amazing." The layout of the second and third floors was similar to the first, just with a wider view. Standing at a third-floor window, one could even see the sparkling Ruyang River a kilometer away, with most of Hanyang City laid out below. Unfortunately, the interiors of the smoking workshops were still unclear. Niu Wei felt a burning curiosity, tinged with regret. The Han tribe didn't allow them near the workshops. Presumably, that was where the real secrets were hidden. Compared to the production operations overseen by the Xin Tribe elders, these Han tribe workshops were far superior. Just as they exited the teaching building, a functionary in a black robe hurried over, whispered something to the translator, and then turned back towards the administration building. The translator nodded repeatedly, then turned to Niu Wei and the others, cupping his hands in a salute. "Elder Niu, everyone, I have some urgent business to attend to, so I won't accompany you further. Feel free to wander around the city, but absolutely, do not trespass into the workshop areas. If you get caught and punished, don't blame me for not warning you." With that, the translator saluted again and quickly walked towards the nearby administration building. He wondered inwardly, what does the chieftain want me for? He climbed the stairs briskly, reaching the 5th floor, stopped before your office door, and knocked lightly. "Come in," your steady voice came from within. The translator quickly pushed the door open and bowed to you standing by the window. "This lowly one greets the chieftain." You turned around and got straight to the point. "You can drive a cart, ride a horse. You've traveled with the steppe merchant caravans twice, understand the steppe people's customs, and speak their language. You're currently responsible for receiving the Xin Tribe delegation, acting as translator and guide. How's that job going? Are you accustomed to it?" "Reporting to the chieftain." The translator straightened his back. "It's going very well. The people from the Xin Tribe are quite easy to get along with. Or rather, because our Han tribe is so much stronger than them, they don't dare act presumptuously. With the tribe and you, chieftain, backing this lowly one, the work is proceeding smoothly. They listen to whatever arrangements are made without daring to object. The fact that the chieftain allows them to stay and learn in the Han tribe is already a tremendous favor." "Good." You nodded, satisfied with his insight. "It's good that you understand this. You have your own thoughts on matters and know how to leverage our position when dealing with outsiders. You've done well, and your understanding is correct. Weak states have no diplomacy. A weak tribe gets bullied. Only by being strong can you stand tall. Look at all the harsh conditions we imposed. Did Niu Wei dare utter a peep? To learn even a few superficial skills, didn't he have to grit his teeth and accept? You affirmed his view with a touch of reflection. The chieftain is right. This lowly one is only able to do this job well thanks to the chieftain's usual teachings." The translator offered a measured bit of flattery, but it was also the truth. Who in the entire Han tribe hadn't learned knowledge and techniques imparted by you? You glanced at him thinking, this kid is indeed clever and articulate, truly, suited for reception work. This job requires not only knowing how to speak, but also knowing what should and shouldn't be said. Maintaining face without letting the other party feel bullied, and certainly not leaking secrets. Sick, the art of language. By the way, you sat back down behind your desk and looked at him. "Do you have a name? What are you called? Do you have a surname?" Replying to the chieftain, the translator's voice held a barely perceptible tremor of excitement. "This lowly one is the third son in my family. Everyone just calls me that. When our tribe sought refuge, there were few of us, and at that time, the chieftain did not bestow a surname." His heart pounded. The chieftain is asking this. Could it be he's going to grant a surname? My heavens, a surname personally granted by the chieftain. What an immense honor that would be. Oh, you drew out the sound fragments of memory surfacing. You remembered now. It was the winter the year Hanyang City was first completed. A small tribe of a few dozen people, unable to withstand the hunger, came seeking refuge. Only 2 made it to the city walls. You had sent soldiers to rescue the rest, finding them nearly frozen solid. Indeed, you hadn't given them surnames. Saving lives was the priority then, and later, with so many other matters, it slipped your mind. After all, such a tiny tribe was truly inconspicuous within the rapidly growing Han tribe. You've been in the Han tribe for 2 or 3 years now, and you've handled the tasks you participated in well, since you don't have a proper name yet. The translator's heart beat even faster, his cheeks flushing slightly. Not just a surname, but a given name too? My ancestors must be smiling down on me. Out of the tens of thousands in the entire Han tribe, how many people receive such an honor? I'm planning to give you a promotion. You changed the subject, dropping the bombshell directly. From now on, you will be specifically responsible for receiving foreign guests. We will establish a formal office with official rank. Let's call it the Office of Protocol. You will be the first Vice Minister of Protocol, reporting directly to me. If you encounter any difficulties in your work or need resources, submit a report directly to me for approval, and other departments must cooperate with you. How does this position sound? All right, you may rise. You waved your hand, signaling for Hong Fu to dispense with the formalities. Tell me about your plans moving forward. Hong Fu was slightly stunned. Asking about plans right after appointing him? Surely you weren't asking what he planned to plant on his few hundred mu of new land? Thank you, Chieftain. I wonder which aspect the Chieftain is asking about? What else? The affairs of the Office of Protocol. You looked up at him. In a few months, by the beginning of next year at the latest, that group of students from the Xin Tribe will arrive. Tell me, how should we arrange for them then? Hong Fu's mind raced. That depends on the chieftain's intentions. However, this lowly one feels there are essentially 2 methods. Either centralized management, limiting their interaction with our people, or letting them loose, allowing them more contact and exchange. Which approach does the chieftain lean towards? You praised him silently. This kid is sharp. He clearly guessed you wanted a free-range approach for cultural influence, but didn't state it outright. Understands propriety. Definitely talented. Doesn't ask what shouldn't be asked. Doesn't say what shouldn't be said. Knows how to feign ignorance. Very good. Let's go with the free-range approach then. You hinted pointedly. Just arrange for their food and lodging. As long as they don't break the law, no need to manage them too tightly. Yes, Hong Fu understands. He immediately grasped the meaning, sticking strictly to his duties. I will certainly follow the chieftain's requirements and keep them well, ensuring they do not violate the laws of our great Han. The implication was clear. I'll just feed them, nothing else is my concern. You both exchanged a knowing smile, having engaged in a clever, unspoken exchange. One didn't state plainly, the other didn't press further. A perfect understanding, utterly harmonious. Hong Fu bowed and took his leave. No sooner had Hong Fu left than Beasttooth arrived. You 2 were old acquaintances, though it had been a while. The man was now 22 or 23, and looked much more composed than before. On his head, he wore a leather headband inlaid with a wolf head badge, secured with a bronze hairpin, the symbol of the 7th rank Guban title. A short inch-long beard graced his chin, adding to his rugged appearance. He wore a dark red military official's robe, without armor, the loose trouser legs tucked into short black cloth boots. A hand's-width leather belt cinched his lean figure, from which hung a coiled leather whip, the symbol of the Jun Sima's military provost command of military law, and an instrument of punishment that made soldiers' legs go weak at the sight. Greetings, chieftain. Entering the room, Beasttooth immediately cupped his hands in salute, his words concise. Still the same as ever, a man of few words but efficient in action, increasingly possessing the air of a soldier. Knowing his temperament, You didn't bother with pleasantries and went straight to the point. How much do you know about the Xin Tribe delegation? I know some things. Beasttooth spilled everything he knew like beans from a bamboo tube. Is it that tribe competing with us for the salt trade on the grasslands? Heard they also smelt iron and grow corn. The delegation arrived 2 months ago, went to Liuyang Commandery first, only got to Hanyang these past few days. Heard the chieftain wants them to attend school here. I've seen that elder named Niu Wei, but haven't spoken to him. He finished speaking and shut his mouth, not asking why you were inquiring about this. You nodded. What he said was common knowledge, nothing surprising. You had absolute confidence in his loyalty, so you didn't hold back, revealing the entire plan concerning the Xin Tribe, including the establishment of the secret Jinwuwei, elite guard unit force, and how to gradually infiltrate and seize control. That's the plan, you said, looking at him. I intend to appoint you as this envoy, representing me, representing the entire Han tribe, with full authority over the delegation and all subsequent matters. This mission might take many years. During this time, you'll need to be stationed long-term in the Xin Tribe. Don't worry about your family. I will arrange for people to take good care of them, and your salary will be delivered to them on time. Once you've established a foothold there, the trade routes are open and secure. I can also arrange to send your family over for reunion. Once the Xin Tribe matter is completely resolved, whether you want to stay there as an official or come back to do something else, you can tell me. How about it? Will you accept this mission? Beasttooth fell silent, a flicker of hesitation crossing his face. This wasn't just popping over to the neighbors. The mission was crucial but fraught with danger, and it meant being away for years, incredibly far away. Loyalty was loyalty, but who didn't have attachments? His wife was still young, his child only 3 or 4 years old. To just leave them behind wasn't easy. If you had sent him to Liuyang Commandery, or even the new gang commandery up north, he wouldn't have blinked. But this Xin Tribe, it was simply too far, so far it made one's heart uneasy. If I go, roughly when would I depart? Beasttooth looked up and asked. He understood the gravity of the situation and trusted you. He understood even better that the most critical part of this plan was that the person carrying it out must be absolutely loyal and reliable. Otherwise, even if successful, should the dispatched person build up his own power base with the troops and declare independence with the acquired technology, all the initial investment would be for nothing. He knew he was the man for the job, perhaps the only suitable candidate. If he didn't go, he would certainly face a headache. Therefore, he still decided to go, but he wanted more time with his wife and child. Departure, well, it would be at least a month from now. You tapped your fingers lightly on the desk. The delegation hasn't even been assembled yet. If you agree, you'll need to start selecting people now. Craftsmen, Jinwuwei members. You can also bring some men you're accustomed to working with. Personnel and supplies all need preparation. You can't leave immediately. During this time, do whatever you need to do. Give me the list of personnel you want to take and I'll grant you leave. You also understood that breaking up a young couple felt wrong. But for the tribe to develop, sacrifices had to be made. This plan was already mild enough, far better than directly going to war with countless casualties. Then, I accept this mission. Beasttooth took a deep breath, having made his decision. As for who to bring, I'll leave it entirely to the chieftain's arrangements. I have only one request. Grant me some leave, let me spend quality time at home with my wife and child. This might be the last time I see them. His voice was somewhat hoarse. In this primitive era lacking even decent roads, water transport was practically a highway network bestowed by the heavens. That famous saying, "Rivers are the highways of the jungle." You now understood it deeply and couldn't agree more. Therefore, aside from dispatching Beasttooth and handling the delegation matters, your biggest concerns now were, firstly, the construction and development of the new territories, and secondly, that money-burning sailboat expedition team. Quickly opening up new sea routes was currently one of the Han tribe's most crucial tasks. 5 new-style sailboats had recently been launched. The cost? Roughly around 20,000 pieces each. Yes, that's right. 20,000 pieces for one boat, against the backdrop of an average monthly wage of only 30 pieces. Keep in mind, a small, crappy, 8-meter-long square-headed wooden boat sold for only 1,000 pieces. Why on earth were the sailboats so expensive? There was no way around it. The costs simply couldn't be pushed down. You'd bet someone was muttering inwardly, "Isn't it just a pile of wood? It's everywhere in the mountains. Nobody cares how much you cut. How expensive can it be?" Naive. The trees on the mountain were free. Cut as you please. But think about it. Dragging such enormous, thick, long logs down the mountain hole. How many oxen and horses? How much manpower would that require? People need to eat, horses need grass. Isn't every bit of that money? Why is timber expensive? The transport costs are ridiculously high. Building large ships requires those extra long, extra thick giant logs that cannot be cut, skyrocketing the transport difficulty. And the costs naturally shoot up accordingly. And it doesn't end once they're transported down. You still need a place to store them. Freshly cut wet wood is unusable. It must be air-dried in a designated place for at least a year, meaning the trees cut now are reserved for use 1 or 2 years later. They can't get wet during drying, so you also have to build sheds, dedicated sites. That's another expense. Once the hull gets large, the usage of metal parts like iron anchors and nails also surges. Adding up all the miscellaneous bits, the cost is no cheaper than the timber. Then there are inconspicuous small items like tung oil, raw lacquer, hemp fibers, and fish glue. They might seem minor, but the quantities needed are frighteningly large. Compared to small sampans, the most important addition to sailboats are those few sails. A standard boat comes with 4 sails, 2 for use, 2 as spares. You can't skimp on the spare sails. Without spares, if you encounter an accident at sea and a sail rips, the boat instantly becomes a message in a bottle, waiting to feed the fish. What are spare sails? They are the ship's spare engine, understand? Each sail must be sewn from double-layered hemp cloth, which is another significant expense. The craftsmanship is expensive too. An 8-meter small boat? That's at most a dinghy. An empty shell. A sailboat. Just the keel alone, in terms of materials and construction difficulty, leaves small boats miles behind. It also requires high temperatures to soften wood planks for shaping. How much fuel does that burn? The hull also has 2 more decks than a small boat, and even a protruding large cabin on deck. Not to mention the mast with the highest degree of difficulty. Material selection is incredibly demanding, and the handiwork is the ultimate test of a craftsman's skill. Using only ink lines, hand saws, and planers, those same old tools, they have to grind a large tree into a perfectly smooth round pillar. If you hadn't personally stepped in to guide them, those carpenters would probably still be scratching their heads. Besides the ship itself, there's the auxiliary equipment, 2 sampans for landing, 3 single-person hydrographic reconnaissance boats for pathfinding, and life-saving bladders. Just these accessories cost over 5,000. Also, a major part of the cost. Some people definitely don't understand. Is this stuff also counted as the ship's cost? Nonsense. Of course it counts. It's like someone exclaiming, "Wow, aircraft. Carriers are so expensive, tens of billions for one." Then asking where the money went? A large part goes to the planes. One carrier-based aircraft costs hundreds of millions, and a carrier has dozens, even over 100. The planes alone cost 10 or 20 billion. Is an aircraft carrier without planes still called an aircraft carrier? By the same token, could a sailboat without those small boats dare call itself a geographical exploration vessel? In the age of sail, the cost of the 100-plus iron cannons on a warship also had to be factored into the ship's price. Without those hundreds of tons of iron lumps, what right do you have to call yourself a warship? This expenditure for the current Han tribe was indeed immense pressure. The main reason was that much of the tribe's fiscal revenue wasn't in cash but in kind, like grain, hemp fiber, and raw lacquer. The bulk of the Han tribe's finances relies mainly on those official workshops, essentially state-owned enterprises, salt extraction, iron smelting, cloth weaving. These three are the biggest cash cows. Common people needing salt, farm tools, or clothes basically have to buy from official sources. Private small workshops, almost none have gained significant scale. Manufacturing is essentially monopolized by the officials. Of course, this refers to major goods. For small-scale tinkering like making a pair of shoes or weaving a basket, the officials wouldn't go so far as to compete for livelihood with the common folk. A tier below these three major incomes is the commercial tax, which is collected in cash. Income from boat rentals and sales in Hanyang City also goes to the treasury. Then there's the poll tax, which also brings in considerable revenue. The last item is foreign trade. Currently, the biggest deal is selling carts to the Xin Tribe. The Xin Tribe has a huge demand for two-wheeled carts. The Han Tribe's price for one cart isn't much cheaper than a small boat. Although not paid in cash, when converted using cattle and horses, one cart is definitely worth no less than 1,000 pieces. Once these cattle and horses are in the Han Tribe's hands, reselling them to the populace or renting them out generates another substantial income stream. What about expenses? The Han Tribe has been going all out on infrastructure development these past 2 years, spending money like water. The biggest expenditures are the newly established commanderies and counties, city walls, streets, official buildings, schools, farmland irrigation improvements. For these public works, you try as much as possible to levy corvée labor during the agricultural slack season. Corvée labor, similar to military service, is obligatory labor without wages, saving a huge amount. Then there's the extensive use of slaves, who only need feeding, also saving money. Grain? The official granaries are overflowing with collected grain taxes. Additionally, the new commanderies and counties also require large amounts of daily necessities, and people buying goods from the workshops contribute some income. Overall, if the new commanderies and counties can barely break even, it means you're managing quite well, basically not needing subsidies from the older territories, except for allocating some grain. Even so, the 20,000-piece cost per sailboat still makes you wince with pain every time you pay. But this money has to be spent. It relates to the tribe's long-term development. Besides, once water transport is truly established, income will only soar. This investment is definitely not a loss in the long run, just slow to recoup, but you still feel like money isn't enough. Because the Han tribe is about to add another extremely massive fiscal expenditure, investment in education. Thinking. Of this, you feel an even sharper pain in your liver. How could these craftsmen be utilized to their maximum potential, earning the tribe a bit more money? You stroked your chin, the little abacus in your mind clicking away rapidly. The current situation, honestly, was a bit awkward. All the skilled craftsmen were gathered under your control in the government-run, state-owned workshops. In the private sector? Forget artisans, it was hard to even find a decent apprentice. At most, there were helpers doing rough work. This had created a bizarre situation. Think back to those feudal dynasties playing the small-scale peasant economy game. Simply put, self-sufficiency. The common folk basically had no consumer demand. Clothing? The women folk at home could weave cloth, maybe plant some mulberry, and hemp in the backyard, done. Buying cloth didn't happen. Back then, even spinning wheels were rare. Hemp thread was all hand-twisted. That process was called ji, and the later term chengji, meaning achievement or results, supposedly originated from it. Food? Grain from their own fields? Pigs and sheep in the pen? Or raise a few chickens for eggs? Besides buying salt, there was basically no need to spend money. Firewood? Go up the mountain and cut it yourself. Where did they spend money? Counting on fingers, it was just salt and iron. They couldn't smelt their own farm tools, right? Nothing else, really. But your Han tribe was different. Yours was a society sprinting from public ownership towards private ownership. The transition just beginning, so problems naturally emerged. Back when public ownership was implemented, livestock was raised collectively by the tribe. Individuals didn't own any. Textiles and metallurgy were also organized into workshops, concentrating resources and manpower for high efficiency and material conservation. Take iron smelting, for example. Letting every household build a small earthen blast furnace. How wasteful. Would that be? Better to concentrate efforts on a few large blast furnaces, use charcoal centrally, and avoid wasting heat. Besides, ordinary people didn't have the skills for mining, crushing ore, or proportioning materials. Resources were already scarce. Could you let them mess around haphazardly? Therefore, even with the current shift towards private ownership, the workshop model of centralized production theoretically still represented progress. The same applied to textiles, washing wool, spinning yarn, and weaving cloth at home. How much time wasted in between? Skills varied wildly. Quality wasn't guaranteed. Workshop assembly lines meant high efficiency, stable quality, fast speed. Small private workshops simply couldn't compare. But here came the problem. Private ownership had begun, but it only meant paying wages to workers, transitioning from obligatory labor to working for money. Ownership of the workshops remained. With the government, you couldn't just distribute the machinery and equipment to the people, could you? That would be ridiculous. More critically, the Han tribe now needed to lean towards a small-scale peasant economy, allowing the populace to achieve a certain degree of self-sufficiency. Don't mistakenly think that reverting from large factories to small workshops is turning back the clock of history. That's too simplistic. Issues must be viewed within their historical context. A production model that's too advanced, out of sync with the backward social reality, can easily cause problems. It's like getting a mighty Dongfeng heavy truck but having no engine, only a stubborn donkey. Even if you desperately tie the donkey to the truck and whip it till the whip breaks, the donkey will die of exhaustion before it can pull the truck. In this situation, you only have the donkey, no other power source available. You can't just stay put, right? Better to honestly switch to a wooden cart. Although the load capacity is vastly different, at least the donkey can pull it and move, which is better than just fretting. The Han tribe was in this situation now. The textile workshop in Hanyang City, with its dozens of looms, could no longer satisfy the needs of tens of thousands of mouths, let alone ravenous cloth eaters like sailboats. What to do? Expand the workshops? Machinery was easy. Just have the carpenters work overtime. But where to find workers? Men were precious labor, busy with farming and infrastructure, their feet barely touching the ground. You couldn't just pull a bunch of grown men to weave cloth, could you? The image is too bizarre to contemplate. And the women, they were busy too. They had large plots of auxiliary fields to tend, planting mulberry, hemp, vegetables, soybeans, lacquer plants. Wasn't every one of those tasks work? Who had time to go work in your workshop? Did they feel they weren't tired enough? Besides, childbirth was also a top priority, related to the tribe's population sustainability. From a physiological perspective, you swore you held no disrespect towards women. Women indeed had it tough. Heavily pregnant, often dragging a 2- or 3-year-old toddler, possibly carrying the second or third child inside. Could you bear to make them work 996 in a factory? So, without expanding the workshops, how to increase productivity? And how to generate revenue for the government while increasing productivity? Your solution was simple. Have the woodworking workshop directly build a batch of spinning machines and looms and sell them to the people. The government would no longer monopolize production but sell the means of production. The key point was, it wasn't that the people didn't want looms. It was that there was nowhere to buy them before. The government workshops didn't sell them. And trying to find someone to make one? There were simply no carpenters in the private sector with that skill. This was the reality of the Han tribe. Craftsmen were extremely scarce. People struggled, even to find a carpenter to build furniture. The government didn't sell finished products, leading to huge market gaps in many areas. And now, this market was showing strong purchasing desire. You dared to bet that as soon as these machines were transported to the newly established commanderies and counties for sale, they would be snatched up frantically. Don't look down on the fact that few could afford the carts and ships you built. Looms were essential goods needed by every household. One per person wouldn't even be too many. Hehe, you were a transmigrator from the modern era. With marketing concepts 1,000 years ahead, you could totally brand looms as one of the essential wedding items, manipulate public opinion, make newlyweds must buy a loom, a social trend, just like buying bicycles and sewing machines was essential for marriage in the 70s and 80s back home. Promotion, definitely promotion. Regarding ironware, this needed strict control, but strict control didn't mean you couldn't sell it. You had a preliminary idea, implement a blacksmith certification system among the populace. Those who pass the AC government exam get an X-level blacksmith certificate. With this certificate, they could apply to the government to open a private blacksmith shop and obtain a business license. Then they could purchase refined iron ingots through official channels to forge farm tools and implements for the people. The benefits of this approach were, firstly, controlling the source. Private blacksmiths only had processing rights, not smelting rights. Want to rebel? No way. Secondly, the amount of iron ingots each level of blacksmith shop could purchase annually could be strictly limited. For example, based on a city's population, tool wear and tear rate, new population growth, etc., set an annual iron ingot purchase limit for each blacksmith shop. Of course, this was just a preliminary concept. The specific implementation needed detailing. How to conduct the grading exams? How many levels? How to define the levels? How much iron ingot quota for each level? All this required careful study. Finally, there was a subsequent problem. Once looms and private blacksmith shops became widespread among the populace, what would happen to the original 2 state-owned textile and metallurgy workshops? Their survival space would definitely be squeezed. Without transformation and upgrading, they'd just be waiting to close down. Transformation was imperative. You pinched the bridge of your nose, feeling the road ahead was still long. Firearms. You rubbed your temples, wanting to avoid touching that for now. Once that Pandora's box was opened, who knew what demons would be unleashed? If some ambitious individual got hold of them, it would be an absolute disaster for this already fragile world. Currently, the world's population was pitifully small. Your only long-term grand plan for now, within your lifetime, was to desperately have babies. Oh wait, no, develop the population. In an era of low productivity, a large population was the ultimate advantage. Think about the war of resistance against Japan. Why could they persevere through such hardships? Large population. They couldn't be killed off entirely, so they would never admit defeat. The resilience of the ancestors was passed down through generations like this. Therefore, the immediate priority was to strengthen internally, develop cautiously, no, steadily. You were busy gathering manpower, selecting talent, collecting supplies and vehicles, and allocating grain, not just for the impending long journey of the delegation and merchant caravan, but also for those 2 sailing expedition fleets that had set sail. They were a top priority in your mind. After New Way's group had stayed in Hanyang City for over half a month, and before the delegation and merchant caravan had departed, the Yu brothers from Luoyang Commandery to the east, under your repeated urging, finally set off. After undergoing some crash course training in sailboat piloting, the brothers each led 3 new sailboats, setting off in grand style. This was the largest ocean-going, long-distance inland river operation in Han tribe history. The flood control effort earlier in the year, though involving many boats, dozens of small, rickety wooden ones, and people, several hundred, was fundamentally different in nature from this expedition using high-tech sailboats to explore routes. Simply not on the same scale. Besides, how many people could a small wooden boat carry? Your new sailboats could cram 80 to 100 people each, and came equipped with enough food and fuel. Yes, fuel. You specifically equipped the expedition sailboats with portable earthenware, stoves made of fire-resistant clay, normally stored in the cabin but movable to the deck for ventilation during cooking. With charcoal brought along, the crew could eat hot meals on board. How could small wooden boats even compare? Eating, drinking, and sanitation all handled on board, a decent standard of living. That's the difference. That day, you personally went to the docks to see off Yufu's southbound fleet, making quite a ceremony of it. Then you boarded Yi's fleet, took the day's waterway to the newly established Waishan Commandery, inspected Yunji's work for a bit, and then rushed back to Hanyang City without stopping. Afterwards, you eagerly awaited Yufu's hawk messages every day. Why so impatient? Nonsense, curiosity. A completely new world map was unfolding before your eyes, bit by bit, through that kid Yufu's logbook. Just thinking about it was exciting. Moreover, the speed of inland river sailboats would absolutely shatter your perceptions. If they really let loose, you'd understand just how terrifying the power of water transport could be. Can't imagine it. Think of Li Bai's poem, leaving Baidi at dawn amid rosy clouds, Jiangling, 1,000 li away, is reached in a day. The ceaseless cries of apes echo on both banks. My swift boat has already passed 10,000 mountains. 1,000 li, approx 500 kilometers in a day, wasn't an exaggeration. Of course, that requires favorable wind and current. What a coincidence. Yufu's fleet currently had a favorable current, racing downstream. Although they didn't catch a perfect tailwind, the thrust from the crosswind was also quite powerful. For safety, the hydrographic reconnaissance boats leading the way were even holding back, and Yufu had already intentionally slowed the fleet's speed. Even so, in just one day, the fleet reached the confluence of a tributary of the Jinsha River, the southeast tributary of the Wuxia Waterway, and the Liuyang River. The waterway relationship is a bit convoluted. Simply put, the Liuyang River and the Rushui River run roughly parallel, like an 11, flowing north to south, separated by Ruyang Commandery, about 100 kilometers apart. Downstream, the Rushui River takes a large bend southeast, passes through the Wuxia Gorge, and flows into the Jinsha River. This was the route you took earlier in the year. But just before the Rushui River merged with the Jinsha River, a tributary branched off heading southeast. You had guessed back then that this tributary would eventually merge with the Liuyang River. And guess what? It actually connected. This was like drawing a diagonal slash between the two parallel lines, 11, forcibly connecting them into an N. Although this connecting channel was a bit crooked, it did link the two major rivers downstream, about 100 kilometers further. South, even better, this transverse tributary wasn't small. It was summer now, with abundant rainfall, and the river surface was generally 50 meters wide, wider than some sections of the Rushui River. Theoretically, it was perfectly navigable for sailboats. What did this mean? A water highway directly, connecting Liuyang Commandery with Hanyang and Ruyang Commanderies. Of course, it was only summer now. How deep was the channel exactly? What size boats could it handle? How much tonnage could it bear? Would it still be navigable during the autumn and winter dry seasons when the water level dropped? These were all unknowns, requiring detailed subsequent surveys. On the afternoon of departure, Yufu's fleet reached this confluence, decisively dropped anchor, and immediately sent a hawk message requesting instructions. Boss, discovered a new waterway. Should we go in and explore? That kid Yufu had a clear head, exploring all usable downstream waterways, determining the hydrographic conditions of each channel, assessing navigability. This was the primary mission of his fleet. Receiving the message, you replied the same afternoon. Send one boat upstream. Thoroughly explore this tributary for me. While you're at it, check on that barrier lake blockage we blasted open earlier in the year. Is it clear now or blocked again? Figure it out and report back quickly. Then return via the original route. Rejoin the main fleet and continue downstream along the Liuyang River. The discovery of this new waterway was highly significant. It directly impacted your future development. Strategy. You had your eye on that region since the beginning of the year, planning to establish a Jumu giant wood commandery and a Jinchuan Golden River commandery there. Why? That area had dense primeval forests on one side, overflowing, with timber resources and vast plains formed by flood deposits on the other, land so fertile you could squeeze water out of it, not to mention abundant water resources, simply a heaven-sent location for agricultural development. Utilizing the timber there, combined with the convenient waterways, building a large shipyard on site to construct even bigger ships. Wouldn't that be wonderful? It could be said that as long as there was a population to fill it, that place was definitely a treasure trove. Grain if you need grain, firewood if you need firewood, building materials everywhere, and water transport incredibly convenient. Where else could you find such a place in this era? What a pity. Population, again population. This shortcoming severely restricted the Han tribe's expansion pace and shackled your ambitions of dominating the world. Otherwise, you would have long since expanded the Han tribe's territory to a scale that would stun everyone. But the prerequisite for all this was enough people. Without people for long-term settlement, how could you occupy territory? Even if it was unclaimed land, you couldn't hold it. Just as you were sighing helplessly inwardly, the next day, good news arrived via hawk. Reconnaissance boat number 1 had successfully navigated upstream along the tributary and reached the mouth where the Wuxia Gorge meets the main river, under the scorching summer sun, beside the great river. The people of the Lu deer tribe waited until the harsh sun dipped west before lazily emerging from their huts to move about. Women, holding wooden forks, stood in knee-deep shallows, their sharp eyes fixed on the fish swimming below. Others worked together to haul vine-woven fishing cages from the river. Baited with aquatic plants, fruit pulp, and bone scraps, the cages attracted attention, but even more eye-catching were the trapped, live fish flopping futilely, ultimately destined to become dried fish jerky. Who told them to be greedy? Bare-bottomed children, in the heat who'd wear those scratchy grass skirts, whooping and hollering gathered around, excitedly counting the spoils in the cages, then giggling as they helped the adults carry the heavy cages back. Girls learning to gather used thin twigs to dig in the soft earth beneath the trees. Occasionally, they ran to the riverbank, cupping water in their small hands to pour into inconspicuous small holes in the ground. Soon, a plump cicada nymph, Zhiliao Hu, would crawl out. The girl's eyes would crinkle into slits with happiness as she carefully picked up the insect and placed it in the small vine cage hanging at her waist. The cage already held quite a few squirming comrades. This stuff was high protein. Roasted over a fire, the hard shell peeled away to reveal a white meat chunk larger than a peanut inside. Tusk, a delicacy. A few mischievous boys playing by the river were yelled at by adults to head back, but insisted on splashing around a few more times before complying, kicking up sprays of water. The men weren't idle either. Some had dug a pit by the river and were stomping mud barefoot inside. Don't misunderstand, this wasn't playing in mud, but preparing clay for pottery. An old man with graying hair nearby, intently shaping a rudimentary clay pot, was proof. The shaped, air-dried clay blanks were carefully moved and neatly arranged in an open space. Dry grass and firewood were piled on and lit with a whoosh, the flames roaring. Although this open-air firing method could produce pottery, the success rate was pitifully low. Temperature control was poor, and without a kiln for insulation, the fired pottery easily cracked, resulting in a very high failure rate. The remaining able-bodied hunting team members, armed with carefully polished weapons, patrolled up and downstream along the riverbank. This served a dual purpose. Firstly, to drive away wild animals coming to drink at dusk, protecting the tribe. Secondly, to bag some game to supplement their diet. At this time, animals would come to the river to drink, so the hunting team didn't need to scour the mountains under the hot sun. They could just wait passively for the deer. It was both safe and guaranteed a harvest. A type of small deer was abundant nearby. They could hunt several almost daily, and sometimes even capture live ones if lucky. Perhaps because fresh meat spoiled quickly in the heat, they tried tying live deer to trees with ropes. Unexpectedly, the foolish deer just grazed contentedly, under the tree, surviving perfectly well. This gave them an idea. The chieftain and elders discussed it. "Hey, this method works. Let's catch more and tie them up to raise." And just like that, confusedly and accidentally, the Lu tribe unlocked the animal husbandry skill point. The people of the Lu tribe were quite thoughtful, good at noticing small details in life and then getting to the bottom of things. Whatever they figured out, they usually managed to gain some benefit. But this kind of thinking and learning had its limits. When something completely beyond their imagination, something they couldn't even dream of, happened, the entire Lu tribe, from old to young, was utterly, completely dumbfounded. The great river, hundreds of meters wide, flowed slowly. Suddenly, a figure drifted leisurely downstream from upriver. The person wore strange clothes, hair tied up on top of their head, wearing a wide-brimmed large straw hat, actually bamboo, and carrying a bulging white balloon, life-saving bladder, on their back. The most outrageous part was that they were standing steadily on a white, bizarrely shaped object, just floating on the water. They were holding on to a huge, triangular wing, triangular sail. That wing, made of unknown material, was taller than a person and had an incomprehensible strange symbol, the Han tribe insignia, drawn on it in black pigment. Behind the thing under their feet, it seemed to be dragging a wooden stick, sounding pole. One end plunged deep into the water. The people of the Lu tribe watched this strange person standing on the water, motionless, moving downstream simply by holding on to that large wing. Collectively petrified, jaws dropped. What is that? Is that even human? What's he standing on? How can it float? Did he make it himself? A barrage of questions flooded their minds, but they found no experience or knowledge could answer. Them, even the oldest, wisest elder in the tribe, stood with his mouth agape, staring blankly at the river, wearing an expression of, "Who am I? Where am I? What happened to the world?" In the middle of the river, the pilot of the single-person reconnaissance boat had clearly seen the crowd on the bank. Not easy. Floating for 3 days, finally seeing living people. This was also an important discovery. He skillfully turned the triangular sail, losing wind power. The reconnaissance boat's speed dropped sharply, starting to drift with the current. Then he forcefully plunged the sounding pole down into the riverbed mud, using it as a makeshift anchor, and the reconnaissance boat stopped steadily. Just like that, one person, one boat, stopped in the middle of the 100-meter-wide river, staring wide-eyed at the dense crowd of the Lu tribe on the bank. His sail actually had a bronze gong attached. Striking it in danger would alert the fleet 500 meters behind. But the situation was fine for now. Hydrography was good, the river wide, the current gentle, not hindering the fleet's passage. Just discovering people wasn't considered an emergency, so he didn't strike the gong, just quietly stopped the boat, waiting for the main force to catch up. Alone, he didn't dare rashly approach the natives on the bank. "Look, he stopped. What does he want? Is he coming over?" The shore erupted in commotion. Long legs, you run fast. Quickly call the hunting team back. A strange person has come on the river. Children, quickly go back inside. Those spearfishing, don't stand by the water. Come back quickly, gather together. The elders remaining behind reacted swiftly, immediately directing everyone to heighten their vigilance and prepare defensively. Who knew if this strange thing floating on the water was friend or foe? 500 meters wasn't far for sailboats with only half sails raised. Picking up speed, they arrived in less than a minute. The lookout atop the lead ship's superstructure soon spotted the reconnaissance boat moored mid-river ahead. Boat okay, person okay, stopped on its own. He immediately realized the scout must have made a discovery. Almost simultaneously, he smelled the faint scent of smoke in the air and instinctively looked towards the banks. Soon, on the east bank, he noticed something unusual. A dense crowd of people, many women, holding wooden fishing forks. The lookout immediately reported to Yu Fu in the cabin. "Commander, native tribe spotted ahead. East bank, quite numerous." He also requested further instructions. Should they approach the shore for contact? Hearing about the discovery of a tribe, Yu Fu was also excited. He bounded up to the second deck of the superstructure in 3 steps and raised his telescope towards the shore. Indeed, a sizable tribe. Judging just by the number of women remaining, behind, he preliminarily estimated the tribe had at least 400 or 500 people. Lower sails. Beat the drum. Order the rear ships to lower sails. Signal flags. Switch to oars. Proceed slowly. Anchor at the reconnaissance boat's position. Bring the reconnaissance boat aboard. Order. Fleet maintain position mid-river. Do not approach the shore. Yu Fu issued a clear series of commands. The ship immediately bustled with activity. Sail. Handlers untied ropes, lowering all sails with a rustle. Oarsmen took their positions, beginning to heave rhythmically, propelling the huge sailboat slowly forward. The signalman on the second deck beat the war drum, alerting the rear ships, while simultaneously waving flags to convey orders. The 3 large ships moved in unison, soon gliding near the reconnaissance boat, dropping heavy iron anchors and stopping steadily. Seeing the large ships arrive, the scout also furled his triangular sail and poled closer to the large ship. With the crew's help, both he and his boat were hauled onto the wide forecastle deck of the lead ship. At this moment, for the Lu tribe, crowd on the shore, shock had escalated to fear. The small single-person boat earlier had already bewildered and alarmed them. Now, suddenly, 3 giant monsters, dozens of times larger, had appeared. And they were covered with densely packed people. What terrified them most was that they seemed to have heard huge noises coming from the giant monsters just now. Muffled, yet frighteningly loud, like the deep rumbling thunder before a heavy rainstorm. Fortunately, the tribe's men, the hunting team members, and returned promptly. They hadn't gone far. But when they ran back, panting, and saw the 3 imposing ships standing tall mid-river, they too were instantly dumbfounded. What? What the hell is that? And those people on top wearing strange clothes, who are they? Why have they come here? What do they want? Commander Yu, the first mate of the lead ship, approached and asked, "Aren't we going over to make contact? I see the water's quite deep near those rocks over there. Should be able to dock." "No," Yu Fu immediately rejected. "This isn't about water depth. Didn't you see how scared they are? Tense as if they've seen ghosts. If we rashly approach now, what if they think we're attacking and start throwing rocks, shooting arrows, or even setting fire to our ship? If this ship burns, are you taking responsibility? Then we're not making contact?" The first mate was a bit defiant, but wasn't the chieftain's mission for us to make more contact with outside tribes? This was his first time partnering with Yu Fu. The captain's position should originally have been his, but Yu Fu was parachuted in, making him the deputy, so he already harbored resentment. Seeing Yu Fu being so cowardly now only increased his disdain. "Who said we're not making contact?" Yu Fu glanced at him. "Go! Lower a landing boat from the stern, call a few men, come ashore with me. Everyone else remain on board and stand by." He paused, then added, "Oh, right, prepare some meeting gifts. Get a set of porcelain bowls and plates, a small jar of refined salt, some chili powder and cumin powder each, and 2 zhang, approx 6 to 7 meters of hemp cloth. That should be about it. Go prepare quickly. Also, everyone coming ashore with me, bring your sabers, everyone, stay alert." Yu Fu issued another string of commands. Sailors immediately sprang into action, running to the stern and carefully lowering a landing boat, considerably larger than the reconnaissance boat. Each large ship carried 2, capable of transporting 20 to 30 people at once, into the water using ropes. Now the first mate, who had just been mentally complaining about Yu Fu's cowardice, completely shut. "Good heavens, how is this cowardly? This is clearly audacious to the extreme, okay? Taking just a few men, rowing a small, crappy boat, daring to go ashore to face several hundred natives armed with weapons. Even with a saber at the waist, not everyone has that kind of courage." The first mate silently stepped aside, not daring to grumble anymore. The landing boat was quickly lowered. Yufu personally led several trusted subordinates, carrying the prepared gifts, jumped into the small boat, picked up wooden oars, and rowed vigorously towards the Lu tribe on the shore. "They're coming over! They're coming over!" The Lu tribe side instantly grew more tense and agitated. However, seeing that the other side hadn't deployed in full force, only a few people were coming, and they didn't seem to be carrying aggressive weapons like spears, they relaxed slightly, but were still so nervous their hearts felt like they would jump out of their throats.